Hello, as a child I was brought up on a diet of Dr. Dolittle and Mary Poppins and some Francis of Assisi and so on. So I always had a sense that animals were sentient. And certainly as a cat owner, I've often had long conversations, particularly with my older cat who's now very ill. And these conversations, a lot of staring into each other's eyes and sensing that something is going on there. There's meaningful thought. And also, I can remember having conversations with people about whether or not cats and animals have souls. This is a debate which goes back for centuries, in fact. Now, the government, it seems, there's a report that came out in the Times on Friday saying that the government is planning a law enshrining in law the idea that animals are sentient. And it's got two parts, neither very threatening. The first is a legal recognition that animals can feel pain, and the second is to create a committee that will give advice, very specific advice. Now, this is really all about ensuring that needless cruelty is avoided, but the usual suspects are out in force, especially a man called Salter, who's representing the Angling Trust. Now, if you go back to the Animal Welfare Act of 2006, that specifically excludes, quote, anything that occurs in the normal course of fishing. So catching fish with hooks, maybe those fish do feel pain. And this fellow says, and again I quote, that we might be sort of caught up by zealots and ideology heralding a substantive assault on country sports. Well, maybe, but not necessarily. Remember, the committee is there simply to give advice. And the Times on Friday seems to be echoing his fears. The Times starts off perfectly reasonably by pointing out, and I've got it here, one of the persistent criticisms of Boris Johnson's government is that it has a tendency to make policy in response to headlines with too little regard to details or consequences. We can't dispute that, and that is Priti Patel all over. So you've got this law, and then there's no follow-up. Nothing actually happens. So if that's the case with this, then I don't think the Angling Trust should be remotely concerned, because nothing will happen. But, I also think that the Times then goes on and it changes tack subtly. It's quite an interesting bit of chop logic there, and it needs to be called out. But it says that ministers would be or could be obliged to follow the committee advice. Well, I hope so. And this would have a chilling effect on countryside pursuits. And it also adds that it's a well-intentioned and poorly drafted piece of legislation. Certainly, most legislation is. And it opens the door to more red tape. Also true. And then it lists the industries that are going to be affected: farming, medicine, construction, and trade. Well, that's a good cover-all. Yes, we want... I think any sane person would want to restrict live or safeguard the health of live animal exports, to pull back on hunting and hunting trophy collection. The bill, it says, the purpose of the bill is to ensure that future legislation is mindful of any adverse effect on the welfare of animals. So it means that whatever you're going to do in future, you're going to be aware of animal welfare. Well, that's perfect. That seems to me to be perfectly reasonable. But this legislation may be a first step towards firmly stamping on the ivory trade, making sure that things like shark fin soup and foie gras belong in the history books, not on the plate of a restaurant table, and also that we might protect farms from wayward dogs that worry the livestock. We might do something to ensure that battery hens are kept in proper conditions, because at the moment, some battery hens are kept in a space which is really not much bigger than a normal sheet of A4 paper. And which animals are going to be protected? Again, this is open to debate. It's not covered in the legislation. The Times prints a very nice picture of two goats, and of course, having looked after goats, I know that goats are sentient. They all have their own character. But there's a question which still remains to be asked. Mammals, vertebrates in general might be sentient, but are invertebrates, insects, ants, for example, are they actually sentient? What about bees? I'm very fond of bumblebees. My partner strokes them. There was some investigation in certain pond life, like the octopus. I was going to say octopuses, and then I thought, no, really, the plural of an octopus is because it's a fifth declension Greek word. It should be octopodi. Octopodi clearly are sentient. We've proven that. So should we be eating them? And how should we catch them if we are going to eat them? How can we avoid being cruel? It's one of our missions in life to be kind, I think. And we should extend that so that we're kind to animals. There we are. Talk later. Bye-bye.